Wood Farm, Sandringham Estate, Norfolk, February 19th, 2026. Just after 8 in the morning, marked vehicles on the gravel. Officers at the door of a 5-bedroom cottage on the King's private estate. The man inside is 66 years old today. No staff to intercept them. He opens the door. The story is already over before it begins. He just doesn't know it yet.
Into the pedo financier. 2 other snaps show the barefoot ex-Duke of York wearing a white polo and jeans, touching the unknown woman's stomach. The female appears to be awake in both photos, with her arm seen raised in one of the disturbing images.
UK Trade Envoy. Her Majesty's Special Representative for International Trade and Investment. Entrusted with confidential government briefings. Granted access to classified reports on military operations, foreign investment, national security. That was the role. On the morning of his 66th birthday, police arrived at his door. Not to deliver a message, but to arrest him. No name yet. Just the collision between what the role was and what the morning became. Let that land for a second, because once you know who held that role and who he was sharing those briefings with, the collision gets a great deal worse. On February 19th, 2026, a former senior member of the British royal family was arrested and held for 11 hours. The charge: misconduct in public office. The allegation: that while serving as the UK's Special Representative for International Trade and Investment, he passed classified British government intelligence to Jeffrey Epstein. Trade reports from Southeast Asia, a confidential brief on investment opportunities in southern Afghanistan, where British soldiers were actively deployed. Government travel itineraries that may have violated the Official Secrets Act. The charge carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. His name is Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. He was born Prince Andrew, Duke of York. And this is not the story of where he ended up living. This is the story of what he did with the trust of his country, and what his family did when they found out. The next 25 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what Andrew gave Epstein, what it cost him, and why the royal family may have known long before any of us did. But I have to start somewhere else entirely. Because the arrest isn't where this story begins, and it doesn't even begin with the eviction, or that the staff being cut from 28 to 3. Those are the ending, and if you start at the ending, you miss the thing that actually matters. The decision that was made, quietly, at the highest level of the most famous family in the world, to let one of their own simply cease to exist. That's where this story begins. And that's where we're going.
Prince Andrew's infamous interview in which he tried and spectacularly failed to defend his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
October 30th, 2025. No public announcement read from a palace balcony. A letter. And then it was done. The man who had been Prince Andrew, Duke of York, Earl of Inverness, Baron Killyleagh, His Royal Highness since birth, became Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, a private individual. The letters patent were drawn up under the Great Seal of the realm, recorded in the Gazette on November 6th, bureaucratic, precise and bloodless. Think about what that actually removed. He lost the right to be addressed as Your Royal Highness by anyone, including his own staff, including his daughters in formal settings. The institutional identity that had insulated him from the full reach of the law for 65 years, gone. Without it, he was accountable in ways he had never been accountable before. The palace did not explain the decision publicly. They didn't need to. The letters patent said everything. In the history of the British monarchy, deprivation of titles at this level had been reserved for one category of act: treason, siding with an enemy of the state. Charles had made his assessment, he just didn't say it out loud. He had paid £1 million for a 75-year lease on Royal Lodge in 2003. The plan was to die there. A 30-room mansion in Windsor Great Park, the last physical proof that he still belonged somewhere inside the structure of the family. He had fought to keep it when Charles first pushed for a smaller property. By January 2026, palace insiders had made it clear. Out by the 25th. No press conference, no statement. He didn't argue publicly, didn't brief against it. On the morning of February 2nd, sometime before dawn, he loaded into a car and left. 4 chefs, gone. 3 valets, gone. The 28-strong household reduced to a skeleton crew of 3. His security detail relocated into a second-hand mobile home, a static caravan on bricks, costing approximately £26,000, the protection of a former senior royal, outsourced to a second-hand caravan. Put the camera outside the gate that morning. No interior, no farewell. Just a car emerging from the dark, headlights on, turning onto the road. Gone. That is the beat. A man who had spent 22 years building a life inside those walls, leaving before anyone could watch him go. Before Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor arrived, Wood Farm already had a history. This is the cottage where Prince John was sent. George V's youngest son, epileptic, prone to seizures, an embarrassment the family could not manage in public view. He was moved here, away from Sandringham House, away from the family's formal life, and kept out of sight. He died in 1919. He was 13 years old. The royal exile address has been earning that name for over a century. It is also where Sarah Ferguson spent Christmas 1992, banned from Sandringham House while the rest of the family sat together a few miles away. Not invited, not included. Redirected here to this cottage while the institution decided what to do with her, and now him. Estate workers on the Sandringham Estate were quietly informed, you don't have to serve him. A list of refusals was already forming before he unpacked. The people paid to maintain the king's private estate had been given a choice about whether to extend that service to the man now living in its most isolated corner. Most of them said no thanks. He moved into the royal exile address, institutionally invisible to the people 50 yards away, physically present, formally nowhere. Before we go any further, drop a comment. When Charles stripped Andrew of his titles on October 30th, were you shocked, or had you seen this coming for years? Team Charles or Team Andrew?
Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor was pictured on all fours on top of a woman sprawled out on the ground in the latest batch of Jeffrey Epstein files. Haunting new images show the former prince staring.
22 years. That is how long Sarah Ferguson stayed. Not through the marriage. That ended in 1996. Through everything after it. The Jeffrey Epstein photographs in 2010. The cash for access scandal. The Virginia Giuffre lawsuit. The BBC Newsnight interview that his own family called a disaster. Through all of it, she stayed under the same roof at Royal Lodge, defended him publicly, maintained the domestic structure of his life long past any legal or financial obligation to do so. No court order kept her there, no settlement required it. She chose it. For 22 years, that choice was the one constant in a life that was losing everything else. Now she is house hunting in Windsor, alone, independent, making no public statement about the timing. She doesn't need to. The timing speaks for itself. She is leaving at the exact moment the arrest lands. The woman who weathered every previous storm has looked at this one and started packing. After 22 years of chosen loyalty, she has found her limit, and he found it on his 66th birthday. The rejection didn't stop at the palace gates. Luke Schreier is not a royal commentator, not a biographer, not a palace insider with a briefing to transmit. He is a neighbour, a civilian living near the Sandringham Estate. And in February 2026, he said this out loud, on record: Andrew needs to go. It's an embarrassment to England because this is going to be worldwide. Sit with that for a second. This is not the institution distancing itself for strategic reasons. This is not a royal editor transmitting palace pressure through careful language. This is a private individual living near the man, saying publicly what the palace will only say through channels. He is not wanted here. The social rejection has moved beyond the family, beyond the staff who quietly declined to serve him, beyond the courtiers managing the eviction through leaked deadlines. It has reached the people who simply live nearby, who have no institutional stake in the outcome, no briefing to protect, no position to maintain. They just don't want him there. When civilians start saying out loud what institutions will only whisper, The isolation is no longer political. It is total. February 19th, 2026, his 66th birthday. Unmarked vehicles on the gravel at 8 in the morning. Officers at the door. No aid to intercept them. No title to give anyone pause. He is Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor now, a private citizen. And private citizens get arrested like everyone else. He was taken to Aylsham Police Station. Custody suite, a bed and a toilet. Held for 11 hours. Beatrice and Eugenie are not mentioned as present. There is no record of either daughter at Wood Farm that morning. No statement from either of them in the hours that followed. The man who fathered them sat in a police custody suite on his birthday, and the documented record shows no one from his immediate family there to meet him when he walked out. He was released in the evening. Photographs caught him leaving, hunched in the back seat of a car, released under investigation, not charged, not exonerated, just released, back into the borrowed cottage, on the King's estate, with 3 members of staff and a second-hand caravan for security. The birthday is not an ironic detail, it is a precise one. Someone decided this was the day. That decision was not accidental. The pressure didn't stop with the arrest. Matt Wilkinson is the royal editor at The Sun. When he speaks about the family's intentions, he is not speculating, he is transmitting. The palace does not issue press releases about what it wants from Andrew. It briefed Wilkinson instead. So when Wilkinson said this publicly, I have a sneaking suspicion he could be in even before that, because they want Wood Farm back. The longer he's there, the more comfy he gets. That is not an opinion. That is a message. The family is not waiting patiently for the Marsh Farm renovation to complete. They are timing an eviction. The arrest has not softened the pressure. If anything, it has accelerated it. And the damage assessment from the people who have spent years inside the documented record of Andrew's life is not measured. Andrew Loney, his biographer, a historian with a publication record built on primary research, has looked at everything and landed here. It's pretty much destroyed the institution. Not Andrew's reputation, not the York family's standing, the institution, the crown itself. 2 voices, one transmitting palace intent, one delivering the historical verdict. Between them, the picture is complete. The family wants him gone, and the man who knows his story best says the damage is already done. Here is what the title stripping actually did. For 65 years, the style of Royal Highness was not just an honorific. It was a shield. It created distance between the man and the full reach of the common law. It surrounded him with institutional infrastructure, aides, courtiers, palace lawyers, that managed exposure before it became accountability. It made a custodial arrest of a senior royal practically and politically unthinkable. The letters patent removed all of it. From November 6, 2025, the date the deprivation was recorded in the Gazette, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor was a private citizen. Subject to the standard procedures of the Home Office, subject to the Metropolitan Police, subject to the Crown Prosecution Service applying the same tests it applies to anyone else. The institutional erasure was not just symbolic, it was preparatory. Without the title, there was no barrier to an arrest. Without the royal style, there was no protocol requiring special handling. Without the Duke of York, there was just a private individual in a cottage on a Norfolk estate. And private individuals can be taken to Aylsham Police Station and held in a custody suite for 11 hours without creating a constitutional crisis. Charles signed the letters patent in November. The police arrived in February. The sequence is not coincidental. On February 19, 2026, at approximately 8 in the morning, Thames Valley Police arrested Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor on suspicion of misconduct in public office. The allegation is specific. Between 2010 and 2011, while serving as the UK's Special Representative for International Trade and Investment, he allegedly forwarded classified British government documents to Jeffrey Epstein. Official reports from a 2-week trade tour of Singapore, Hong Kong, and Vietnam. A confidential brief detailing investment opportunities in southern Afghanistan, where British soldiers were actively deployed. government travel itineraries that may have constituted a violation of the Official Secrets Act. The charge is misconduct in public office, a common law offence, no statutory cap, maximum sentence, life imprisonment. He was held for 11 hours. Simultaneous searches conducted at Wood Farm and at Royal Lodge in Berkshire. Seizing records, seizing digital evidence. Released under investigation that evening. Not charged, not exonerated. The inquiry remains active. This needs to be stated clearly. No charges have been filed. What the documented picture actually shows is that a former senior royal was held for 11 hours on suspicion of a charge carrying a potential life sentence. The Metropolitan Police does not detain members of the royal family on a hunch. An 11-hour custodial arrest requires significant evidential basis. That is the fact the investigation produced. The last member of the British royal family to be arrested was King Charles I, and that was 1647. Take that detail for what it is. A rhetorical marker, not a legal parallel. The circumstances are entirely different. The constitutional machinery is entirely different. But the basic fact sits there regardless. In nearly 4 centuries of British royal history, it had not happened. Until a February morning in Norfolk in 2026. And when it did happen, here is where he was doing it from. Marsh Farm, his permanent destination on the Sandringham Estate, a red brick farmhouse near the village of Wolferton, described by those who inspected it as in dire need of repair. Rodents confirmed, asbestos suspected, total electrical rewiring required, the access road potholed. In March 2026, 20 tankers arrived to deliver approximately 150,000 gallons of liquid manure to the fields immediately surrounding the property. His security detail operates from a second-hand static caravan on bricks, a Willoughby Meridian lodge, moss on the exterior, compact vinyl flooring inside. Cost, approximately £26,000. This is the Crown's provision for a man who once commanded 28 staff in a 30-room Windsor mansion. The contrast is not accidental. Nothing about this has been accidental. Here's what I keep coming back to. If Andrew really did pass classified government intelligence to Jeffrey Epstein, trade reports, military briefs, travel itineraries, he didn't do that in a vacuum. He was a trade envoy operating inside a government infrastructure. People knew his schedule. People knew his contacts. People knew he was still seeing Epstein long after the public claims that the relationship had ended. So the question isn't just what Andrew did. The question is who else knew. Did the palace know? Did anyone inside the government infrastructure flag it at the time and get told to leave it alone? Or was Andrew operating completely independently, using his access, his clearance, his role, entirely on his own initiative, with nobody watching? Drop your answer below. Did the palace know, or was Andrew working alone? Because the answer to that question changes this story considerably. And I want to know where you stand before we get to the part that makes it even more complicated. February 19th, 2026. Hold that date and look at both tracks simultaneously. Track A. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor has been at Wood Farm since the first week of February. The estate workers won't serve him. His ex-wife is house hunting alone. His neighbours have called him a national embarrassment on the record. Matt Wilkinson has already transmitted the family's message. They want Wood Farm back, and they are not being patient about it. The domestic standoff is hardening. He has nowhere left to go and no one left to lean on. Track B. The US Department of Justice released millions of Epstein documents on January 30th. Among them, emails, forwarded government reports, a confidential Afghanistan brief sent to a convicted sex offender. Digital forensics teams are already working. The Metropolitan Police have been building a case. The evidential threshold for a custodial arrest of a former senior royal is extraordinarily high. They have reached it. Both tracks arrive at the same door, the same morning, the same man. A 66-year-old private citizen in a borrowed cottage on his birthday, with 3 members of staff and a second-hand caravan for security. opened the door to unmarked police vehicles at 8 in the morning while the family that exiled him there was already planning to take the cottage back. The domestic humiliation and the criminal jeopardy did not arrive separately. They converged, simultaneously, on the same day. That is not coincidence. That is the shape of a life collapsing at once. Before I tell you what the arrest means for the rest of the royal family, I need to know where you stand. If Andrew is convicted of misconduct in public office, if it is proven, beyond reasonable doubt, that he passed classified British government intelligence to a convicted sex offender while serving as a Crown trade envoy, should the family publicly disown him completely? Or is he still their blood? Comment right now. Because the answer to that question is not as simple as it sounds. And what comes next is going to make it harder, not easier. Andrew Loney has spent years inside the documented record of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's life. He is not a tabloid commentator working from press releases. He is a historian and biographer with a publication record built on primary research, including material the palace attempted to suppress. He has read the correspondence, traced the relationships, mapped the timeline. When he delivers a judgment on what this story has done to the institution, it carries the authority of someone who has done the work. Before the verdict, you should know something. Loney has a financial and reputational interest in Andrew's story being significant. A prosecuted Andrew, a convicted Andrew, an Andrew whose case reaches trial. All of that makes his book more valuable. He profits from this story mattering. That is not a reason to dismiss him. It is a reason to listen carefully to how he says what he says. Because here is what a man with every incentive to overstate actually said. It's shaped the reign of Charles. It's a distraction from all the other work they do. It's undermined the reputation of the members of the family. It's pretty much destroyed the institution. Pretty much. Not entirely. Not categorically. A biographer with a financial interest in maximum damage chose the most controlled word available, and that understatement is doing more work than any superlative could. Let it sit. This is important to state clearly. No charges have been filed. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor was released under investigation on the evening of February 19th. Released under investigation means exactly what it says. Not charged, not exonerated, inquiry ongoing. The Crown Prosecution Service has not made a decision. The investigation may produce no prosecution at all. That is the epistemic limit. It matters, and it belongs in this conversation. Now here is what sits alongside it. The Metropolitan Police does not arrest former senior members of the British royal family on a hunch. A custodial arrest, not a voluntary interview under caution, a full custodial measure, of a man at this level requires the authorising officer to be satisfied that the evidential threshold has been reached. Satisfied enough to send unmarked vehicles to a cottage on the King's private estate at 8 in the morning. Satisfied enough to simultaneously execute search warrants at 2 separate properties in 2 separate counties, seizing records and digital evidence. The bar for that decision is extraordinarily high. They cleared it. No charges have been filed. That matters. An 11-hour custodial arrest of a former senior royal on suspicion of a charge carrying a potential life sentence also matters. Both things are true. The documented picture holds both of them, and it does not allow you to dismiss either one. The intelligence sharing, the specific allegation at the heart of the arrest, has not been proven. No document establishing guilt has been made public. The claim that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor forwarded classified British government intelligence to Jeffrey Epstein originates from the investigation's framing, not from an established finding of fact. The Crown Prosecution Service has not charged him. No court has tested the evidence. Nobody has been convicted of anything. What the documented picture actually shows is this. On January 30th, 2026, the US Department of Justice released millions of documents from the Epstein investigation. Among them, emails, forwarded reports, a confidential Afghanistan brief, digital correspondence between a royal account and Epstein's, Metropolitan police detectives examined that material. They concluded there was sufficient basis to arrest a former senior royal and hold him for 11 hours at Aylsham police station while simultaneous searches were conducted at 2 properties. That is the fact the investigation produced. Not guilt, not innocence. A threshold reached, a decision made. Detectives satisfied enough to act. The specific nature of what was allegedly shared, the Southeast Asia trade reports, the Afghanistan investment brief, the travel itineraries. These details emerge from the Epstein files. They are being examined. What they ultimately prove, if anything, is a question the investigation has not yet answered. Frame it as what it is. No more, no less. There is a version of the wood farm pressure that sounds entirely mundane. The king owns the Sandringham Estate. Wood farm is a property on that estate. A renovation at Marsh Farm is underway. The family needs Wood Farm back for practical reasons. It is a working estate. Properties are allocated, timelines exist. This is property management, not a campaign. That framing is available. It is also insufficient. Here is why it fails. The British royal family does not communicate property requirements through standard channels. They do not send letters from the Crown Estate solicitors and wait for a response. When the palace wants something known, without wanting to be seen wanting it, it reaches Matt Wilkinson. Wilkinson is the royal editor at The Sun. His access to the family is not incidental, it is structural. When he says the family wants Wood Farm back, he is not offering an opinion formed from publicly available information. He is transmitting a position someone gave him. The channel is the message. This is worth acknowledging directly, because it makes his quotes more credible, not less. A man with that level of palace access is not speculating. He is reporting what he has been told. And what he has been told is this: I have a sneaking suspicion he could be in even before that because they want Wood Farm back. The longer he's there, the more comfy he gets. The pressure is active, it is coordinated, and it has been running in parallel with the criminal investigation the entire time. In 2003, Andrew paid £1 million for a 75-year lease on Royal Lodge. Sit with that decision for a moment. Not the scandal, not the Epstein connection, not the titles, just the decision itself. A man who was not born into certainty, fourth in line at birth, steadily displaced as the family grew, choosing to plant himself somewhere permanent, to commit to a place. The lease ran to 2078. He would never have to leave. Royal Lodge was his answer to the question of where he belonged inside a structure that had been quietly edging him toward its periphery his entire adult life. It was an act of rootedness. Whatever else he was doing, and the investigation has made clear there was a great deal else, he was also trying to belong somewhere. The lodge was his. And then there is the other side of it. While he was serving as the UK's special representative for international trade and investment, while governments trusted him with classified briefings, while British soldiers were deployed in Afghanistan, while the country whose flag he carried gave him access to its most sensitive material, he was forwarding that material to Jeffrey Epstein, a man whose crimes against children were already known, already documented, already convicted. The betrayal was not impulsive, it was sustained. Years of correspondence, years of forwarded reports. The trust of his country and his crown extended to a man who had no right to hold it. Both things are true, the rootedness and the betrayal. One does not cancel the other. The condemnation lands harder because the humanity was real. King Charles III is managing his own cancer diagnosis while simultaneously managing the most damaging royal scandal in modern history. Hold that for a second. His own body is failing him at the same time his institution is. He did not choose this inheritance. The Epstein connection, the Virginia Giuffre lawsuit, the unsealed documents, the arrest. None of it arrived on a timeline he controlled. He became king, and this came with it, already metastasized inside the institution before he had any power to act. He is not a well man dealing with a manageable problem. He is an unwell man dealing with an existential one. That context does not exonerate his decisions, but it belongs in the picture. Now the other side, the The decision to strip Andrew's titles was communicated through palace insiders and leaked to royal editors, not delivered directly, not stated publicly, not handled with any gesture toward the humanity of the man on the receiving end. The method was chosen for its effectiveness. A letter, the Gazette, a briefing to Wilkinson. The institutional distancing was total and deliberately so. He erased a brother. He let the briefings do the work. He issued 4 words on arrest day. The law must take its course, and signed them Charles R., not Charles, not your brother, the King. The signature tells you everything about the decision that had already been made. This was not a family matter by that point. It had been reclassified. Andrew was an institutional liability, and institutional liabilities get managed, not consoled. Sarah Ferguson chose to stay for 22 years after the divorce. Not because the marriage was repaired, it wasn't. Not because the public had forgiven either of them, it hadn't. She stayed because she decided to. Through the Epstein photographs in 2010, through the cash for access scandal, through the Newsnight interview, through the Virginia Giuffre lawsuit and the settlement and the titles being stripped, every time the institution moved further away from him, she moved closer. The domestic loyalty was unconditional in a way that no legal or financial arrangement could explain. That loyalty was real. It cost her something. The palace never warmed to it. The public never fully understood it. She maintained it anyway for 2 decades because she chose the person over the institution's verdict on the person. Now she is house hunting in Windsor, independently, facing significant financial challenges of her own, a charitable venture closed, a book deal rejected. She has received no housing provision from the King. She is managing alone. And the timing. She is not leaving after the titles were stripped, not after the eviction, not after the departure under cover of darkness. She is leaving now, as the arrest lands, as the investigation sits open, as the possibility of a life sentence sits on the table. After 22 years of chosen loyalty, she has looked at what is coming and decided this is where it ends. The loyalty had a limit. He found it on his 66th birthday. That is not a footnote. That is a verdict. Here is the position this story leaves me with. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is not a sympathetic figure. The investigation has produced sufficient evidence to arrest a former senior royal and hold him for 11 hours. And the material at the centre of it, if proven, represents a fundamental betrayal of public trust. Classified intelligence, a convicted sex offender, British soldiers deployed in the regions covered by those briefings. There is no framing of that which lands anywhere other than where it lands. But the method of his removal deserves its own scrutiny. A family that communicates through royal editors and letters patent and 4-word statements signed with a title rather than a name, that chose efficiency over humanity at every step of this process, is not a family that gets to occupy the moral high ground without examination. The institution survived. It always survives. The question of what it does to the people it decides to erase in order to survive, that question does not get answered in the Gazette. Charles made the right institutional decision. The titles had to go. The eviction had to happen. The cooperation with the investigation was the only defensible position. Every one of those decisions was correct. The way they were made is a different conversation, and that is the part nobody else is having. Because it is easier to focus on Andrew's crimes than on the machinery that ground him into dust and called it justice. Andrew lost his titles, he lost Royal Lodge, he lost 25 of his 28 staff, he lost his ex-wife, he lost his daughter's public support, he was arrested on his birthday and held for 11 hours in a custody suite with a bed and a toilet. That is the story everyone told. Here is the story nobody told. This was never about where Andrew lives. The housing, the eviction, the mobile home for his security detail, none of that is the point. Those are the symptoms. The diagnosis is something older and more deliberate than a property dispute. What you actually watched across the last 6 months was an institution decide that a person no longer exists. Not punish him, not exile him, erase him. There is a difference. Punishment acknowledges the person. Erasure removes them from the record. The title's gone through letters patent. The statement from the palace on arrest day, not a defense of a brother, not even a condemnation. Just, the law must take its course. 4 words. Signed Charles R. The signature of a king, not a sibling. That is what this story was actually about. And the birthday arrest, February 19th, 2026, is not the crisis. It is the punctuation mark. The sentence was written months earlier. The arrest just put the full stop at the end. Every family eventually has to decide how much shame one person can cost before loyalty becomes complicity. Most families never reach that moment. The shame stays manageable. The loyalty holds. Nobody has to choose. This family reached it. And when they did, they didn't hold a meeting. They didn't issue a statement of estrangement. They did something quieter and more final. They changed the letters patent. They briefed the royal editors. They let the eviction deadline leak. They issued 4 words on arrest day and went back inside. The erasure was total, and it was chosen. That is the uncomfortable thing this story leaves you with. Not outrage, not satisfaction. Just the specific silence of a family that has made its decision and does not intend to revisit it. A man who was born into that family, who carries their name in his surname now because he has nothing else left of them, sitting in a borrowed cottage on their estate, under investigation, waiting. The institution has survived scandals before. It will survive this one. It always does. The question this story actually asks, the one that has no clean answer, is whether survival and justice are the same thing. Whether the people who do the erasing are always the ones who deserve to hold the pen. Andrew has lost his titles, his home, his staff, and now faces a potential life sentence. One question before you go. Does he deserve any sympathy at all? Or did he bring every single bit of this on himself? Tell me where you stand. I'm reading every comment.